Aloha! You're listening to Body Worship, an oasis for the mind, a temple for the body, a sanctuary for the soul. I'm Anna Marie, and welcome to my podcast, where we explore the most cutting-edge alternative modalities, ancient rituals, and sacred practices that shaman, yogis, and healers from all corners of the world have practiced to deeply connect with Source. We'll discuss ways to advocate extreme self-care and align your emotional, mental, and spiritual mind, body, and soul. Thanks for tuning in to Body Worship. Aloha, and welcome to our final episode of Season 1, Body Worship. So tonight is our closing ceremony, if you will, and I would first of all just like to say thank you to you, my listeners, who really made this so much fun this season and had patience with me as I learned a bunch of technical things and really moved through the entire season with you, my guests. So thank you. Also, the most enormous thank you to each one of my guests. Each of my guests is so innovative and out of the box when it comes to the type of modality that they are offering. And I just want to thank them for their contribution to what they do for humanity. Not only the services that they offer, which really has the intention of helping humanity with enlightenment, but also with their public speaking, their books that they have written, TV shows, movies, radio shows, podcasts, and everything that they do to really spread the word and really help humanity as a whole. So thank you for each of my guests. And tonight we are going to speak with Aaron Moriarty. He and I are going to have a discussion about the big picture, if you will. He has had some experiences in his life. I did too early on. And we're going to talk about what happens when we tap in and really get the bigger picture of what our soul is, how that plays into our everyday life. Sometimes people have experiences when they're young, and it's a fleeting moment that stays with them forever. And that is precisely what happened with Aaron. I have also had that kind of experience when I was younger. So we're actually going to look at this in depth. And as my final episode of Season 1, I just again want to thank you so much for being my guest and listening and your contributions and all of your beautiful feedback, and just thank you. I really look forward to next season, where I promise to continue to have innovative, out-of-the-box, alternative modalities that really make you think and that are really there to help you be able to really connect in with the sacredness of who we are and get our bodies back into a homeostasis state. And so without further ado, Aaron Moriarty is a toy and game inventor and designer at Hasbro Tonka Toys, and he has worked with Henson Associates and Lucasfilms. He's also a toy inventor. He's a children's book illustrator, artist, and radio talk show host of the UFO show, blogtalkradio.com/Aaron's UFO show. He also had his own cable TV show about UFOs, and his guests include Stan Romanoff, who's an international best-selling author and abductee and experiencer. He also had a movie that was created about him. Jim Sparks is an abductee, Lawrence Spencer, author of Alien Interview, and many, many others. Aaron continues to invent new and innovative toys and game concepts and presents them to the biggest toy companies in the world. He also markets his toys and games, Hot Games and Puzzles, LLC, including the board game Tetragon 2, as featured at Mensa Mind Games, and the world's first high-definition coloring book, Color Door County. Hi, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining us on Body Worship.
Thank you, Anna Marie. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Well, thank you. And so at the top of all of my episodes, I always ask what type of tea you are enjoying this evening. So what are you having?
I'm having jasmine green tea with a touch of honey because, as you know, jasmine is not only the symbol of forever love, but it's also one of the holy flowers of Buddhism, and it tastes good too.
Yes, and it smells amazing. I love jasmine. It's one of my favorite flowers. In California, when I lived there, I would be riding my bike by the beach or just taking walks, and the jasmine flowers, when they're blooming, are just heavenly. So I am actually having a tamarind tea, and tamarind is really good for digestion problems, cholesterol, blood pressure, and also if you have diarrhea or if you're constipated, I guess it's supposed to regulate you. But it's really a great detoxifier for your liver. So I have this tamarind tea with Madagascar vanilla bean. It just tastes really great.
Wow, that sounds really more exciting than what I'm drinking.
No, I love jasmine tea. I have you on the show because you have a really compelling story of something that happened to you in your younger life, in your early 20s. I know you were working at Hasbro at the time, and I don't want to give anything away. I want you to tell our listeners exactly what happened to you, because this is just absolutely, when you told me this, I was just riveted the entire time. So can you please explain?
Sure. Like you said, I was working at Hasbro as designer, but I came home and I was listening to the radio one night, and there was a gentleman on the radio talking about astral projection and how to do it. And I'd heard of this before, but I didn't really have an opinion on whether it would work or not. So I thought, well, I'll give this a try. And he instructed us to lay down on our backs with our hands crossed over our chest, and to imagine our toes and our feet and our legs becoming very relaxed, and all the way up our body becoming super relaxed, and our fingers and our arms and our torso and even our head, to the point where we can't even feel ourselves breathing. And then you simply just sit up without sitting up. And I did, and it was the most amazing thing that has ever happened to me. I came out of my belly area, and I was like a round ball. My immortal spiritual being, or my soul, was like a round ball about 8 to 12 inches in diameter. And I kept rising up at that speed that I sat up at. And I could see in every direction, up, down, sideways. I could see the walls moving. I could see my body getting a little bit littler, the ceiling getting closer. But everything I saw was clear, like something I've never seen before, some super clear vision, and all simultaneous. I could see every direction at the same time. And I had the sense that this ball was nothing. I mean, there was nothing in it, but yet it was everything that was the true me. The actual spiritual me was encapsulated in this round ball rising up from me. And when I got up about 3.5, 4 feet above my body, I started to realize that, wow, I knew so much. I pretty much knew everything. And I knew that I could go to Jupiter. I could go to the moon. I even could go to the sun, because I knew that radiation or heat wouldn't affect me. But at that same moment that I thought those things, I also realized, wait a minute, I've already done all those things, and I've done them so many times, it's not even interesting anymore. So I kept rising up above my body, and there was this stream of knowledge, this gray sort of a stream of knowledge that I could mentally access. And I plucked out mentally a flower, like a white flower, and the flower came out of this stream of knowledge, and it just distilled down to its basic molecular form, molecular structure. I had the knowing then that this is why a flower is designed this way. So that was very bizarre. And as I looked down at my body, now I could still see the walls and the ceiling, but I focused on my body, and I was 24 at the time. And I had the feeling that my life in that body was such an infinitesimally small piece of me, of my soul self, that it really wasn't even registering as part of me, that I just felt free that I was out of it. And it was then I realized I'd lived many, many lives, probably more than I could count. I had the feeling that none of those lives really were registering either. I just felt kind of free from being in the life that I was just in. So that was very interesting. And now, before this happened, I was an evolutionist, and I didn't think that we even had a soul. Since I was a little kid, I was very scientifically minded. So when this happened, over the years, thinking about it, trying to put the pieces together, I tried to imagine being a ball and seeing in all directions. I couldn't put that together, and I'm a very imaginative person. I could not do that. I had to come to the conclusion that this really did happen. We really do have a soul, and this soul is something that is very godlike. And so we're much more than the flesh being that we think we are, and something very spectacular.
Can I ask you, did you feel that you were connected to Source, or was this you feeling that you were the actual creator, or did you feel like you were a separate creator that was omnipotent and all-encompassing? Did you have any sense of any of that?
I didn't really have a sense that I was the creator, but I did have the knowing, not a sense, but a knowing that I knew everything. And whatever I didn't know, I could access through this stream of knowledge. And I could really do anything. I knew I could go to Jupiter. I knew I could do all these things. And then I realized I'd done all these things, and it's really kind of boring knowing everything. So we should, instead of wishing we could be out of our bodies, we should enjoy the time in our bodies when we can enjoy the wonder of discovery. Because once we're out, we already know everything, and it's no fun to know everything. So enjoy your life while you're in it, because it might not be as fun as you think when you get out.
That's just so incredible. I had an experience with Auyasca that I was everything, and I was part of everything, and I knew everything. And I longed for being able to be back in my body. And then I saw how different astrological signs and the people that were in my life that were each astrological sign, what they were teaching me, and then the frequency that people vibrated to as far as their numerology and the moment that they were born, and the lens that they teach whatever lesson they needed to teach in my life at that moment, and that dance that we did. And you're right, it's a longing to be back in the body. But what's interesting that you said is that your life seemed insignificant, and all your lives seemed very insignificant while you were just your soul and you were detached from your body.
Yes, I wouldn't say insignificant. It just didn't register.
Oh, it didn't. Oh, I was misunderstanding your meaning of not registering. Okay.
It wasn't important enough to register on the soul level. But now I am no expert on this. I was only out of my body a couple minutes, so I really didn't learn everything. But and everything that I realized when I was out of my body, I can only grasp a very small portion of it now that I'm back in my body, because I don't have that expansive knowledge, or I don't have access to it like I did when I was out. So not insignificant, just didn't register. And I don't know, I guess if you were in a classroom that you really were not interested in, it's kind of like that.
Right. Okay. Okay. Now, said that there was a stream of consciousness.
Yes. Yes. A stream of knowledge.
Stream of knowledge.
And it was gray, as I remember. And it seemed to be moving, but still at the same time, almost like the blood in a vein moves, but the vein doesn't move. And I could mentally pluck anything out of there I wanted to. And I just plucked the flower out. I love flowers, and I just plucked the flower out, and it distilled down to its basic molecular form and structure. And I remember having the knowing that that's why a flower is designed that way. Thinking about that in the years following really challenged my perceived reality that we are just basically like animals that are born and die with no soul. I had to recalibrate my whole understanding of what we are. We are much more than flesh animal, and probably every living thing is also.
Yes. How interesting. So if you could tell the rest of the story of what happened, because I find that fascinating as well.
So as I'm rising up, and I'm going at the same rate of speed, very slow, and after I had the experience of looking at my body and thinking, wow, I'm not even interested in what that life is, or no connection to it. And then stream of knowledge, I kept rising up and seeing like crystal clear vision from all directions. And as I rose up, started to go through the ceiling. The ball that I was about 8 to 12 inches in diameter. Like I said, a ball of nothing, but actually it was everything. When I got about a quarter of the way through the ceiling, the top part of my immortal spiritual being was inside the ceiling, I could see the dark, dingy, all the wood and the insulation and the nails, and it was dark, but I could still see my body and the walls below, but then I kept seeing more of the insulation. That kind of frightened me. It sort of scared me, and I came zooming back into my chest, and I thumped, and it felt like that. It felt like a thump into my chest, and then my whole body was pins and needles, as if my blood had stopped. So I had to rub my arms and my legs vigorously just to try to get the circulation going again, because I'm pretty sure my blood had stopped. And if I would have continued on to Jupiter, I probably would have, the body part of me would have died. And so that's why I haven't tried it again. Even though my life was insignificant when I was out of it, when I was back into it, my life was very significant, and I didn't want to risk losing it. I felt like I had more life to live. And so I haven't really done it again. I've been kind of afraid to, because I don't want that to be my last day on the planet.
Well, I know that there are lots of people who do astral project and they come back all the time. So I don't know, because I'm not an astral projector. I've tried to do it. I just can't. So for those people who are, practicing it and learning how to do it, I don't want to scare anybody, because everybody's experience is different. But I do know that there are lots of people who do it safely. I just don't know well enough how to explain how to do it, or even do it myself on purpose. But you had another experience when you were in elementary school?
Yes, I was in second grade. And as a result of this happening when I was 24, over the years, I've been thinking about it and processing it. And part of that process was going back into my life, to my earlier life. And I suddenly realized, oh, wait a minute, when I was in second grade, I had this very interesting experience. I was at recess at school, and it was recess time. It was a beautiful day out, nice, clear blue sky, very few clouds. And I was laying on my back in the grass. There were no other kids really close to me. They were all running around doing something else. And I looked at the sky, and I noticed the moon. I could see the moon. And I remember this very vividly. And I thought, well, how come I can see the moon? It's daytime. And then I thought, well, if I can see the moon, I should be able to see the stars, because stars are, to me, they were brighter. They're smaller, but they're brighter, like a pinprick of very bright light. So I thought, well, if I can see the moon, how come I can't see the stars? I thought, well, maybe I'm not looking far enough. So I started looking really far up. And before I knew it, I was up there. I was up in the upper stratosphere. And then looking down at the little Earth, and I got afraid of heights, and I zoomed back into my body, and I found myself clutching, just gripping the grass and rolling over carefully, hanging on to the soil and the grass, fearing that I was going to fall up again. And from that day forward, for quite a while, I was rather reluctant to go outside, because I was fearing that gravity was going to reverse itself again. And if I was in a house or a building, there'd at least be a ceiling to stop me. And I really thought about that a lot. But thank goodness gravity has not reversed itself. So that was very interesting. So thinking back on that, I think I did leave my body then. So I've actually done it twice.
And both times, not on purpose. Yeah. I had an experience when I was in junior high and the end of elementary school, and that summer, and then the beginning of junior high. And I kept feeling like I was not in my body. I kept telling my parents and anybody who would listen to me, I feel like I'm watching TV. Like I'm not here, but I am talking. I can hear myself, but I don't feel like I'm in my body. And I felt like I was just constantly above it. one day on the way to school, I was so sick and tired of feeling like that I started jumping up and down as hard as I could. And I had those clogs. Yeah, it was in the 70s with bell-bottom pants and stuff. And I started jumping up and down as hard as I could to get myself back in my body. In school, I felt detached. I mean, it was just the worst feeling. And it happened a couple of different times, like 3 or 4 different times where all of a sudden I would be out of my body, walking around and living my everyday life. And then that day that I purposely jumped up and down, and I was also purposely feeling the bark on a tree so that I could like feel that day on the way home, I was like, oh, I'm in my body. And that never happened again. But it's just so interesting how when you're younger, I guess our body is trying to calibrate and figure out how to stay in, our soul is trying to calibrate and figure out how to stay in our body. And I just love your story because it was so unexpected both times, but you had such a profound experience both times.
Yes, and yours, it sounds like maybe your soul was very tall. It wasn't used to be.
Maybe I was a Melchizedek. Well, I have this really interesting story that I wanted to read. My friend Jace Kalisa, who I love his YouTube channel and everything that he puts out, he shared this. And this really speaks to what we were talking about and what, we're talking about our experiences. So here's the story. It was a car accident, nothing particularly remarkable, but fatal nonetheless. You left behind a wife and 2 children. It was a painless death. The EMTs tried their best to save you, but to no avail. Your body was so utterly shattered, you were better off, trust me. And that's when you met me. What? What happened, you asked. Where am I? You died, I said, matter-of-factly. No point in mincing words. There was a truck, and it was skidding. Yep, I said. I died? Yep. But don't feel bad, everybody dies, I said. You looked around. There was nothingness. Just you and me. What is this place, you asked. Is this the afterlife? More or less, I said. Are you God? You asked. Yep, I replied. I'm God. My wife, my kids, you said. What about them? Will they be all right? That's what I like to see, I said. You just died, and your main concern is your family. That's good stuff right there. You looked at me with fascination. To you, I didn't look like God. I just looked like some man, or possibly a woman, some vague authority figure, maybe, more of a grammar school teacher than the Almighty. Don't worry, I said. They'll be fine, your kids. We'll remember you as perfect in every way. They didn't have time to grow contempt for you. Your wife will cry on the outside, but will be secretly relieved. To be fair, your marriage was falling apart. If it's any consolation, she'll feel very guilty for feeling relieved. Oh, you said. So what happens now? Do I go to heaven or hell or something? Neither, I said. You'll be reincarnated. Ah, you said, so the Hindus were right. All religions are right in their own way, I said. Come walk with me. You followed along as we strode through the void. Where are we going? Nowhere in particular, I said. It's just nice to walk while we talk. So what's the point then? You asked. When I get reborn, I'll just be a blank slate, right? A baby. So all my experiences and everything I did in this life won't matter. Not so, I said. You have within you all the knowledge and experiences of all your past lives. You just don't remember them right now. I stopped walking and took you by the shoulder. Your soul is more magnificent, beautiful, and gigantic than you can possibly imagine. A human mind can only contain a tiny fraction of what you are. It's like sticking your finger in a glass of water to see if it's hot or it's cold. You put a tiny part of yourself into the vessel, and when you bring it back out, you've gained all the experience it had. You've been in a human for the last 48 years, so you haven't stretched out yet and felt the rest of your immense consciousness. If we hung out here for too long, you'd start remembering everything. But there's no point to that or doing that between each life. Well, how many times have I been reincarnated then? You asked. Oh, lots. Lots and lots. And into lots of different lives, I said. This time around, you'll be a Chinese peasant girl in 540 AD. Wait, what? You stammered. You're sending me back in time? Well, I guess technically time, as you know it, it only exists in your universe. Things are different where I come from. Where do you come from? You said. Oh, sure, I explained. I come from somewhere else, and there are others like me. You'll want to know what it's like there, but honestly, you wouldn't understand. Oh, you said, a little bit down. But wait, if I get reincarnated to other places in time, I could have interacted with myself at some point? Sure, happens all the time. And with both lives only aware of their own lifespan, you don't even know it's happening. So what's the point to it all? Seriously, I asked. Seriously, you're asking me for the meaning of life? Isn't that a little stereotypical? Well, it's a reasonable question, you persisted. I looked you in the eye. The meaning of life, the reason I made this whole universe, is for you to mature. You mean mankind? You want us to mature? No, just you. I made this whole universe for you. With each new life you grow and mature and become a larger and greater intellect. Just me? What about everybody else? There is no one else, I said. In this universe, there's just you and me. You stared blankly at me, but all the people on Earth. All you, different incarnations of you. Wait, I'm everyone? Now you're getting it, I said, with a congratulatory slap on the back. I'm every human being who ever lived or who will ever live. Yes. I'm Abraham Lincoln. And you're John Wilkes Booth, too, I added. I'm Hitler, you said, appalled. And you're the millions he killed. I'm Jesus, and you're everyone who followed him. You fell silent. Every time you victimized somebody, I said, you were victimizing yourself. Every act of kindness you've done to yourself. Every happy and sad moment ever experienced by any human was or will be experienced by you. You thought for a long time. Why, you asked me, why do all this? Because someday you will become like me, because that's what you are. You're one of my kind. You're my child. Whoa, you said, incredulous. You mean I'm a god? No, not yet. You're a fetus. You're still growing. Once you've lived every human life throughout all time, you will have grown enough to be born. So this whole universe, you said, it's just an egg, I answered. Now it's time for you to move on to your next life, and I sent you on your way. And that story is called The Egg by Andy Weir.
Beautiful, beautiful.
It is, and it makes you think because we're not the definition of this body.
Right.
And that's why I loved your story so much. And I know that story just takes you a minute to just have to digest it. You have a really good analogy. In fact, the best I've ever heard. I am a past life regressionist, and I've been doing this for 30 years. And I have never heard anybody say this the way you did about who we are in comparison to the example you gave. So can you please share that?
Sure, I would be glad to, and thank you for the compliment. It only came after many years of thinking about this experience, and what I came to figure out is our soul is like us, and our body is like a car. So when we drive a car, we are animating the car. We are the soul of the car. When we get out of the car is lifeless. and we continue on. So that's what it's like. We're like, while we're in this body that we're in, we are animating it and driving it just like a car. But it's not us, just like the car isn't us. The real us is what's driving it or animating it.
That is such a good explanation. I've never heard that before, and it is, I'm sure somebody's given that, but it was just brilliant of you to come up with that analogy. You have such a brilliant mind. You're always coming up with such amazing examples of stuff, which is why I love talking to you. Could you tell me what one of your favorite practices for self-care is?
Well, for the last 18 years, I've been eating only fruits and vegetables. I don't eat the flesh of animals anymore. I like to eat anything that's just good for me, good for my body. I do meditate on occasions, but I really like to draw. I like to paint, sculpt, invent, and color. And I even developed a coloring book that it's a high definition coloring book, first of its kind. And it's very relaxing to color. If you ever want to unwind, color or draw or create, that's the best way to reconnect with yourself and your surroundings.
Absolutely. And your coloring book is actually available on Amazon. And I'm going to put the link below so that people can buy it and color with the colored watercolors. I love that. And, colored pencils. But it is, I've seen some of the pictures that you've done, and it is a really beautiful coloring book. So I'll definitely put the link on there. And then I know you are an inventor and a toy designer, and you have your own YouTube channel. So I'm going to put the link to that on there as well. And if anybody wants to go over there and look at it, Erin's link will be below it. So thank you so much for this beautiful and insightful conversation that we've had. It's one of many. We talk all the time on the phone. And I just had to share this on the show because I just was so compelled when you first told me this. So thank you so much for everything that you do in this world, Erin, and for the blessing that you are.
Well, thank you very much, Anna Marie. And you are just an awesome host and a great conversationalist. And people listen to this woman. She's very intelligent. She knows so much. And I know this podcast is going to be like the #1 podcast. So tell all your friends to subscribe to this podcast. You will grow immensely from listening to this woman and the guests that she has.
Thank you. Yeah, my guests are amazing, and I can't take credit for that. But thank you very much for the compliment, Erin, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
And that concludes tonight's episode. Be sure to check me out on my website, bodyworship.me, or my Facebook page, Body Worship Coach, where you can schedule a free initial consultation for personal empowerment coaching, holographic quantum long-distance healing sessions, the Happiness Project, which is known to stop panic attacks, anxiety, and depression within one session. I also offer past life regressions, workshops, and seminars. Join me next week to anoint your awareness with ancient knowledge and practices by tuning into another episode of Body Worship, an oasis for the mind, a temple for the body, a sanctuary for the soul. If you've enjoyed tonight's episode, be sure to subscribe and like the show at the link below. I'm Anna Marie with my lioness sidekick, Sophie, and you create an amazing day. Namaste.